Welcome to the Journey to Wellness podcast, sponsored by the Essential Wellness Society and Healing Wheel Holistic. I'm Melissa Stonehill-Kyam, and I will be your host. With over 40 years' experience in the health and fitness industry, I am ready to dive in to some of the most conflicting topics we have regards to health today. Let's go. Welcome back to the Journey to Wellness podcast. My name is Melissa Stonehill-Kyam, and I am here with Lissa Lenz. Lissa owns the Colorado Springs School of Yoga, and she's the founder, CEO, entrepreneur to create that facility. And we're going to talk all about the yoga practice, the yoga school, the yoga training, the deeper philosophies underneath which her mission statement is. And I'm really excited to talk with you today. I think there's so much to learn about what it is that you're doing, your why, and to really get people dialed back, almost like to reel it in of the authenticity of what these practices are and how you approach your teacher training, your vision for people that are coming together to become yoga instructors or yoga professionals, like she has stated. So let's get started with, I'm gonna do a little icebreaker, okay? So I just handed you a round trip ticket to anywhere in the world that you wanna go. All expense paid, ground fare, airfare, everything. Where are you going?
Tough question.
I know.
You know what's wild is we have a few family properties, and one of them is in Buena Vista, Colorado. And so you could hand me an all expense paid ticket to anywhere I want to go, and I just want to go to Buena Vista to the ranch and be with my horses.
Oh, wow, that's so nice.
Being in
I love
nature.
that idea.
Yeah, hot springs, the nature. It's one of my happy places. And I will also add on to that, I lived in San Diego for 10 years.
Oops.
And I'm always trying to do anything to get me and my family back there. So taking them back to San Diego would always be on that list as well.
So what I really like that you said is that it doesn't have to be so exotic, but we take it for granted that we live in a country that has landscapes like Utah, Arizona, the Rocky Mountains, the beautiful cliffs of San Diego's beaches. I've looked stunning pictures of southern plantations, and we have so much geography and so much beauty here in America, and everybody's just dying to go somewhere else. So I love that you reeled it in to be like, yeah, I just want to go home and hang out with my horses. And on our travel page, I'm always putting pictures of the waterfalls in Colorado. And I've lived all over this country, and the reason that I chose Colorado is like permanent dwelling place. It's so beautiful. People have said, well, don't you want to go to Switzerland? It's so stunning. And I'm like, well, I can go to Telluride, or Ouray, or all like Durango and all
So
these
diverse.
places, right?
Yeah.
And not have to hop on a plane.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. That's really homegrown.
It's like where the heart is.
Yeah. So tell me, and everybody who's listening, I'm sure there's a lot of yogis out there, and I want to speak to these yogis. And I in my experience in being in many different yoga classes, is that people who are instructing, they most of the time live a very holistic lifestyle. Let's talk a little bit about how you came to this practice.
I was a professional figure skater growing up.
A professional figure skater?
Yes.
Wow.
And that was the better part of my childhood, all the way through my teenage years. I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and my family moved to Colorado when I was 10, so I could train with the best coaches and train with the best skaters.
Was that here in Colorado Springs?
Yes, it was.
The Olympic
And
city.
Yes, it is. And also high altitude, right?
Right.
So there's this idea of high altitude training. And that was my life. I had a very unique childhood. I was in school for maybe 4 hours out of the day and then lived at the rink. Went to the rink in the morning, went to school for 4 hours, went to the rink in the afternoon, and did that day in, day out for years.
I almost feel like that's the way it should be.
I mean, I learned so much, and my work ethic to this day was born in those areas of training.
Yeah,
and it was
because
my
you learned
passion, it was my
discipline,
life.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there were many days where you showed up at the rink and you were sore
Yeah,
from the workout before.
absolutely.
But you had, this is what you do.
This is what that is what I did, and it was my world, and it was my life, and my family just supported me, and the fact that they sacrificed their home and their family living in Albuquerque to make this move for me to
Right.
grow into my profession and my dreams said a lot about them, and the sacrifice they made, and so that even in and of itself is something I'm highly aware of to this day.
Well, I feel like what we're touching upon too is the heart of the athlete. So I talk about this a lot. I raised athletes myself and was that mom in the variety of the different areas of their athleticism. And one of the things I find in the heart of the athlete is that this is a person that every day wants to be 1% better.
Oh yeah.
Every single day, waking up like, how can I do it better? How can I do it better? And never really being satisfied, knowing that there's always more.
There's always more.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think it really kind of molds a very, I'm going to use this kind of phrase, a clean-cut person, where just for myself as a mom, having been involved in athleticism myself, when I was raising my kids, of course, you have the questions of like, you can't choose your kids' friends, right? But every parent wants to make sure their kids are on the straight and narrow. They don't want to getting in trouble. What can I do to keep them busy and growing and expanding? And I found that when your kids are involved in athleticism of some sort, whether it's yoga, running, dance, karate, whatever, they're not on the corner getting high. And it's, for me, that was my experience.
Yeah.
And usually they're choosing friends that are their teammates.
Yep.
So,
or competitors, even in my world, all of my best friends were my family, but they were also my competitors. Yeah. So
how fun is that?
It depends on the day.
Well, you see that in professional sports too. Like
they become your family.
They're playing against each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But then they're going
Hanging
out after the game.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really wonderful background. And was there a point where you couldn't skate anymore? Was there a reason that you didn't go past a certain point?
Yeah. So, like most athletes, ended in injury. And it was an injury to the hamstring, and it was a rupture.
Wow.
So it took a lot of physical therapy to get back to even just being able to walk normal.
Wow.
So from that point, when I stepped back on the ice, when I was able to, I had realized, I didn't realize then, I realize now that I was burnt out.
How old were you at this time?
15. So
That's hard.
And it was very hard because it was also very much my heart.
And you were basically ice dancing, correct?
I was a pair skater and a single skater. So I did have a partner for a time, but most of my time in skating was as a single skater. So it was just me, myself,
I'm
and
blown away with ice skaters.
Yeah. It's a tough sport,
It
and they
is,
are
and
tough
when you fall,
athletes.
you fall hard.
Yes, yeah.
You fall hard, and
Yep.
as we know, ice is kind of unforgiving.
Very unforgiving, harder than concrete.
Oh,
When you're on a 1/4 inch of a blade,
I bet.
makes it that much more interesting and challenging. But it was also my life. It's what I grew up doing. It's what I was really talented at it. After the injury, I just had a moment of I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if my body can do this.
You felt some pushback.
I felt some pushback, and it was really hard because when you step away from a world that you know so well, it's like, who are you?
Oh my gosh.
Who am I now?
Yes.
And the question of, well, what do I do now? And this question has come up through my life in various stages, and that was the first time it came was, well, what now?
And you're 15.
15.
And
Going through
you're
body
doing
changes.
Part-time school, full-time practice. You're coming out of injury, and for those of you that aren't aware, so when athletes have injuries, they're so addicted to the endorphins the body makes when they're training. And like she was saying, who am I now? I have a son who's a runner trying to make it into the Olympics in distance, and there's been many injuries along the way. And I remember one time when he couldn't run one season, and depression can set in.
Definitely.
So I bought him a guitar because I was like, well, he's the kind of person that needs to learn something all the time, right?
Yeah.
But I realized that athletes, that is how they define themselves. This is what I do, this is what I am, this is how I function. So I understand the turmoil and conflict.
Yeah.
That
inner turbulence.
Oh, heck yeah.
It's a very bumpy ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All inside too.
So what did you do?
Oh, good question. So I was 15, so I didn't know. I just kind of trusted that it would all unfold.
Okay.
And so I went through the rest of high school, graduated high school.
But were you still skating?
No.
Like from 15 to 18?
I did go back to skate to get my golds. So I'm a triple gold medalist in skating, which means you test it out. So you tested through all the way to the level of being a senior. And that was something that I wanted to give my mom and dad. Because
so
they had
sweet.
sacrificed so much that the least I could do is go back, get my golds, and then move forward. And I'm glad I did. But that wasn't going back into competing. It was just going back to test out.
Yeah, so technique.
So technique.
And it was an accomplishment that you could achieve.
Yes.
It was tangible.
It was
accomplishment.
tangible, even with the injury. It was everything that I knew really well. I wasn't working on, I didn't need to do a triple in order to get my golds. But when I was competing, that was the goal.
I don't know how you guys spin like that. Like when
some-
I watch it, I was like, how do they spin and not get dizzy?
Oh,
what's that trick?
Yeah, I know, because it's different than dance, right? You grew up in dance, and you have to spot, right, to keep your balance.
You can spot.
There is
you can't spot that fast.
It happens so fast. Before you know it, you're either landing on your blade or landing on your butt.
But how do you even train your brain? To not get dizzy.
I don't think I trained it. I just think I grew up that way. So
that
could be a conversation another day.
Fall.
Exactly. There's been times where you go up and you're just like, okay, let's see what happens, right?
Oh my God.
And you, like I said,
that's
land on the
that
blade
thing
or land
impresses
on the boat.
me like nothing else. And I'm like, you can't. My fingers can't even go as fast as your legs go.
Oh, I know.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So from teenage years.
Yes. Yeah.
What was your next step?
My next step was getting into college, and for me, I was very, like you said, I did go through this situational depression period where I just was like, what do I do? And so I wanted to learn. I'm one that likes to learn about what's going on inside my body, even if it's not bunnies and rainbows, in order to apply what I learn so I can move through and to the other side, whatever that might be.
It's such a mature thing to latch on to when you were in college.
So I thought, and this was kind of trial and error, I was like, oh, well, then I'll go into psychology and I will become a psychologist.
Okay.
And so I did. I studied that for 3 months. And my then boyfriend, now husband at the time, he kind of saw me starting to spiral down, and he was like, you know, you are looking depressed. And when he said that to me, it clicked. It was like, it's because I'm not moving my body. The aspect of what I knew my entire life was movement. And then when I go and sit down at a desk and with all these people in college, it wasn't my form of learning.
Right.
So
you were so kinesthetic. You needed to feel
so
it.
Kinesthetic.
Yeah.
Yes. That
God, I so relate.
I just went and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go take a dance class. And I went and I took a dance class at a city college. And I was like, oh, this is it.
Right
and
on.
I remember walking out of that class and just being like, oh, I could breathe.
What kind of dance?
It was modern contemporary.
Oh,
so it was
I love modern contemporary.
very freeing. It was kind of the opposite of ballet, where I had lived that structure in skating for so long that I needed freedom.
Now you got to be interpretive, right?
Yes, I needed freedom.
Yeah.
I needed this aspect of breath, and that's where like my joy and my passion. I always danced as a cross training.
Well, you have to, right?
Cross training for skating, so it wasn't unfamiliar. It was going back to something I definitely knew. But that's when my passion and my joy really was born through dance.
So did you change your major?
Changed my major.
Were you a dance major?
Yes, I became a dance major and theater. Learned all the ins and outs of production. My last year in
so fun.
Yeah, my last year in college, I created my thesis was choreographing. Like a whole performance.
And I bet you were great at it.
I loved it. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. It took the competitiveness and kind of softened the competitor inside of me.
But there is a level of competition
There
in
is
theater.
a level of it, but it's more so with yourself, which I was used to, but it wasn't a podium at the end. Right. It wasn't this idea of like, okay, here's your gold medal or your trophy. It was a self feeling of, oh, I created
It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work. You know, I shared with you that I was a technical theater major and a dance minor, but it's a lot of moving parts and putting it together, and I just thought also it was so expressive and so freeing. So I really understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of work.
Yep.
Which you want.
Absolutely.
Like you want the work.
And everything that I learned in creating a production, an experience, and a lot of, in modern contemporary, we're not just looking at ways of which to move the body in a pretty way. We're looking at the ways in which to move a body in a raw way.
Oh yeah, my favorite was Martha Graham.
Oh yeah.
And I studied Graham technique, and it was a little dark, but in life there's darkness, and what I loved about the art interpretation of the darkness is that you can take that darkness and make it beauteous with movement and expression and the choppiness and all of that, and mixing that into all of the other light-hearted stuff. So I like the dramatic aspect of it.
And while going through that and learning all of that, what I didn't know I was doing was somatic experiencing.
Excellent.
And that's when I became a minor in cognitive science. And that's when I was like, this is why it feels so good.
So explain to people who are listening what the somatic experience is, because I know that's a word that's being used a lot, but I don't know that everybody really understands what it is. So
we all have subtle traumas in our body, whether it's from even maybe a near miss in a car accident, or maybe it is a car accident. Maybe it's that form of embarrassment that one got when they were younger. We all have subtle birth or post-birth, right? We have subtle traumas, big traumas in the body all the time, and I like to tell my students we're all walking balls of trauma. And ways in which we can do all the talk therapy we want to try and work through some of these issues. The deeper lying issue is actually in the body and held in our nervous system. and the ways in which we can move through that, and they're called guntis in yoga, blockages essentially, is to create passageways, to create circulation, so that the somatic can move through, so the trauma can be released. It's like another analogy is a necklace, right, that gets tangled. And through somatic experiencing, you're gently taking one of those little knots and you're loosening it. And then through another experience, you're taking the other side of the knot and you're loosening it. So it's not an immediate Band-Aid effect, okay, now I'm cured of my trauma. It does take practice, and you have to stay consistent with it. But through this work, in diving into the body, not even having to say a word, starts to release. Starts to create space, so you can fill the space with what you're actually desiring.
You know, a lot of people don't realize the mind-body connection. And, you know, there's a beautiful book where the body knows the score. And
love that book.
Lots of people experience pain throughout their body. And women specifically, pelvic pain and neck pain, pelvic pain, and I've recently learned that neck pain and pelvic pain are interconnected, and we hold a lot of our trauma and stress in the hips. And do you have you learned specific practices around, since you have the somatic background in psychology, have you learned practices that you apply to your yoga school and teaching your practitioners on how to
release,
work with women, men too, but I'm just saying dominantly it's women who have migraines and pelvic issues, and a lot of it has to do with traumatic births and being born and giving birth, and you know, all the rules are put on you when you're young.
We are strong, capable beings. Like female bodies are designed to hold a lot. And then that is another aspect of why these traumas start to form, is because we don't talk about them. We just kind of push it down and suppress it until it manifests into a physical ailment. As in a migraine, as in the knot in the back of the shoulder, or sickness, and then even disease, right? So it does have this trickling layered effect, and the teacher training is trauma informed. So it's not a therapy, it's not a yoga therapy school, but the training is heavily trauma informed, which means we work a lot in the somatics, which means before we can even get into somatics, we have to create a solid container amongst the group, and we have to create a safe and sacred space for people to feel like they can open in that way. And everybody has a different experience with it, right? So throughout the training, there's times where I'll be guiding an experience and somebody will have a moment. And it's kind of their choice to be like, okay, I want to be handheld through this, or let me see if I can get through it. And so it just, I kind of take the lead off of them. But I am, I have been coached in how to facilitate them and writing through those waves.
So
and
when
I have
people
a lot
have
of
a
techniques.
breakthrough, you're able to support them.
And that's why I think this training has provided so many people with personal growth, even if they have no desire to go on to teach.
Right.
So,
well, there's a lot of people I feel take certain teacher trainings just to deepen their own personal practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to connect the dots, you went from skater, injured skater, dance minor with psych, or then you went dance major. Where married? Kids.
Well, not quite kids yet.
Not kids yet, married. When did the dance school happen?
Well, then I graduated, and then that infamous question.
The yoga school.
The yoga school.
Excuse me.
Then that infamous question kind of came up after I graduated of like, well, what do I do now? What do I do now?
Besides paying back student loans, what am I going to do?
Right, what do I do now? And so I got into YTT. And the yoga teacher training that I took is the exact same one that I do now.
Who's
So it's
with
through
you?
Katie Brower.
Okay.
And I just reached out to a friend and I said, hey, where'd you get your yoga teacher training? She said, go through Katie Brower. Emailed her the next day, got into it the next round. And at that point, I had also gone through a miscarriage. So I was entering into a training again with like this huge weight and this situational depression and
trauma.
grief. And grief, and really searching and seeking, okay, I need to learn about this so that way I can apply it. And with real no end goal of sharing it. I mean, it really wasn't my purpose in joining it.
So it was more exploratory.
It was exploratory, and it was a way for me to process the grief and to move through. And so I got into the training, and 3 weeks into training, I found out I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and
Congrats.
that was with my older now,
Nice.
who's 8, and asked Katie. I was like, hey, am I still good to do this training? She was like, absolutely. So it's really cool because I know this training can support many bodies. It's not just are you advanced enough? It's not, I mean, I've had an array of bodies come through the training, ranging in different ages. I mean, the youngest being 17, the oldest being 75. So it's so supportive, and
So nice.
there really is no, I wholeheartedly believe that I know that this training will support anybody on their journey, no matter what their body is going through. And I feel like I'm a little bit of a testament to that because I was going through grief. I had just had a miscarriage. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I had to go through all of the feelings of like, well, what if I lose it? What if this doesn't happen? And that is also
the trepidation.
The trepidation.
Yeah.
But I could really lean into the container of the training. And the students and my peers and my friends that were around me in the training, right? So you had mentioned even before we kind of started videoing, like how important it is to formulate a community and a container for people to be there and to feel safe. And so I went through my experience. After I went through my experience, I said, that's what I want to do. And I started teaching. You get on the teaching gig, right? You just you get all your classes that you can get. You start to teach. We moved back to Colorado. I thought in my mind I needed to teach 15 classes a week.
That's a lot.
Way too much.
Right.
But I learned a lot through it because it did lead me down another path, which I'll segue later to. But it taught me what burnt out really was and what it really felt like, right? Just getting into a studio and teaching and taking every sub opportunity I could do and taking every client, even if they weren't my client, right? Like, what's your ideal client?
Right.
I just said yes to everything.
I get it.
Yeah,
You
right?
just were like, just totally wanted the volume because you thought this is what you do.
And this was also like kind of what, not my YTT, but like kind of this idea that you create and this vision you create in your head of like, oh, well, this is how I get to.
How do I make a name for myself?
This
how
is
am
how
I
I
going to
get
get
there.
people to come because it's my class,
Yes.
not just because it's 9 o'clock?
Yeah.
So when did you start the school?
So COVID, 2020 hit.
Yes, it did.
The ultimate pause across the universe, right? And from there, it was like a month of just like resting. And I enjoyed it. It was actually a time where I had so much time off the mat that I could start to create and cultivate. And through that, I reached out to Katie and I said, hey, what do I do now? It's like my new favorite question for her. What's next? And she goes, she kind of mentored me through this whole process of like, well, what do you really want to do? And I said, I want to do a YTT. And she goes, it's a lot of work creating a YTT. I said, I know, but I want to do your YTT. And she goes, okay, let's get you to where you want to be.
Cool. So she helped you create the curriculum?
She helped me create the curriculum. She had the curriculum. And ultimately after that, it was just kind of like branding and learning how to market and get my name out there. And I knew I didn't want this training to be associated with just one studio. I wanted it to be open, which is how the school formed.
Where's the school?
Great question. So we have...
Was that like a trick question?
No,
Okay.
but it's funny because I don't put the address on the website for a reason. There's a few reasons for that, but it depends on the format of which training we're doing or program or continuing education workshop for the space that we have. So I have a Lissa Lenz studio up north out of my home, and then I have a Lissa Lenz studio down south off of 21st Street. And that actually is in a beautiful boxing gym that we kind of come in, and they don't use it on the weekends, and so we make it our home for the weekend format. And that's where we host the weekend format, and then the weekday format, which is the one that's coming up, is done out of my home studio.
And yeah, I get not putting the address. I have on my website too, I drop off a number.
Yeah.
Because why do I want everyone to know that?
Well, and I also encourage people, I want to talk to people, so it's
you get to vet your people.
Yeah,
we're like that on retreats. So people have said, well, why don't you just post your retreat on this site or that thing, and why don't you have a payment on your website? I'm like, there's some people who could pay us triple and we'll say it's not a good fit.
What's wild is
we want to handpick the people.
Yeah, you want to have a connection prior. And still, what's wild is we've had people just book it, and I'm like, oh, they don't even know where they're going. I know they'll get the email of congratulations, you've been accepted, and here's where you're going, and here's next steps until training starts. But there have been people that have just booked it and then I don't meet them until the day one, right? Until we get in.
That's kind of odd too. It feels weird, right?
It was definitely an interesting situation, but also a beautiful situation because the person that came in was so willing to not have any questions about anything. And so that told me how transparent my website and all the information I put out is.
Right.
It means that
you covered your bases.
I've covered everything, and this person had no questions.
How long is your teacher training?
So the weekend format is in 8 weekends, and with 3 weekends off. So it spans around 3.5 months from start to finish. The weekday format is an immersion, so it's got a little bit faster pace. That is 4 weeks, Monday through Thursday from 9 to 3, with 1 week off, and then 2 weeks on. And so the other thing I want to mention about both of these trainings and both of these formats of the 200, I offer a grace period at the end, meaning everybody graduates the same day. When you get certified is totally up to that person because I honor learning styles, and everybody has a different pace of learning.
Right.
So whereas one student's like, I have checked every single box and I'm going to have my final checklist into Lissa the week after training, great. And then I've had other students take 6 months. Okay. And that's okay because there's a lot outside of our in-person training that our students take on. Right. Whether it's reading, podcast,
there's a lot of education I know you guys go through. Yes. I watched my daughter going through her first cert, and I was blown away how much information she really needed.
And it's also, you get the learning, you get the education, but we ask our students to apply it.
Well, you have practical experience. You have to.
I encourage them to be curious.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because it was like, there's some people, even like in health and fitness, in any kind of fitness class, there's some people that can do everything right but can't bring the magic. Yes. Then there's some people that bring the magic but don't, technically aren't in the pocket. It's really important to merge the two. Yeah. Because one of the things about teaching, if I'm going to go take a class, you got to bring the magic because that's what's going to keep people
engaged.
That's going to keep me coming back. There's certain teachers I get attached to in class.
And that's the flavor, right? It's because they have taken the learning, they've applied it to themselves, which now when they share it, it's not them teaching, it's them sharing wisdom.
Well, they're excited about it too.
It's this wisdom in an authentic way.
I remember...
Right? It's not just regurgitation.
Yeah. I remember once I was suffering from a setback, and my daughter dragged me to a yoga class, and literally dragged me because I was not feeling great and was pretty broken physically, and she just told me to lay on the mat.
You were like, what?
Yeah, and she had told the teacher she was bringing me, and I was like exponentially experiencing the vibe of the room.
Oh,
And all I could really do was lay there and breathe. I couldn't really move my body at the time.
yeah.
And
Be in
there
your
was
practice.
a lot of acceptance,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I went back.
Yeah.
And I went back, and I went back until I was able to move a little bit. And I remember everybody's so advanced and doing all the cool stuff. And I remember finally being able to get into a downward dog. And I remember the yoga teacher coming over to me and oh my gosh, that is a beautiful downward dog, you know? And I'm like, well, she said it in the Sanskrit name, which I forget. But I was so proud of myself for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, of course, I was going to come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And come back and come back.
Yeah.
And because the environment made me feel good.
And I think there's this aspect of you had an experience versus this idea of that yoga is just a workout.
Well, I learned how to meditate.
Yeah.
That's where I learned how to meditate.
Yeah.
Because I was in a lot of pain, and all I could do was meditate on that.
Yeah. And that is one of the most healing forms of yoga and what yoga can provide. And meditation isn't a one-size-fits-all. We go into a meditation, we do it like a meditation sampler is what I call it in the training, of where we guide our students through I think it's 15 different meditations.
It's beautiful.
And they get to step away and be like, oh, it wasn't just the sitting up, the eyes closed, and then quieting the mind, because
that doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah,
and for some people, that could actually stress them out.
Or make them feel like they failed.
So I'm picking up this book at this time. So this is a book I wrote. It's called Daily Practices, a Mindfulness Companion. And the reason I'm picking it up is a segue into a question I'm going to ask you. But so this is basically a template of the many retreats we do, because we realize that you have to connect to people in different ways.
Yeah.
So there's 7 different chapters. Now, as a holistic nutritionist, I have taken the liberty of rewriting the food pyramid based on energy, eating like energetically, going from photosynthesis, the greens, the cholera, the actual megahertz of the foods, down to calling what animal proteins are, which I'm not judging it, but it is 0 megahertz, okay? So it's called death because it's death.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I researched when I was creating this lovely food pyramid and writing I have the food pyramid and then the infograph with the megahertz going down into the megahertz. Here you can see all the,
Because life is what? Energy.
Right. But when I was writing this, I touched upon the yogic ways of eating, and very much like food that you take in is very much based on the energy that it provides.
Yeah.
So right here, the common cold has been measured at 58 megahertz, while candida vibrates at 55. They've measured cancer in people's bodies. So when people's frequencies drop, their health drops.
Yeah.
And when you feed basically based on bioactive electrons, you're feeding your body
Yeah. And your soul.
with
Yes.
good energy, right?
Yeah.
You raise the vibration
Absolutely.
of your entire being. And so when I went down this gigantic rabbit hole I started looking at the way yogis eat. I started looking at the way Shaolin monks eat. I started looking at the way people in the blue zones eat, the centenarians, the people that have been living longest on the planet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Studying all of the ancient practices of food intake. So my question to you is, when you're teaching and the YTT training and everything, do you guys ever go over best practices of nutrition for yoga?
Yeah, and not as in depth as the amazing pyramid that you have, that I want a copy of.
Well, I will give you a book.
Oh, we thank you.
Yes.
But we do talk about it, because we talk about how your body is your temple, your body is your vessel, right? It gets you from point A to point B, and how sustainable can the practice be if you're not taking into all aspects of what you're intaking, not just in food, but also in media, social media. What is the vibration of everything that's in your life?
Exactly.
High vibe people, low vibe people.
Exactly.
So we don't get highly into food, but we get highly into, all right, make a chart of your own and do a pie chart, right? And then fill in that pie of family, friends, finances, love, your career, your desires.
Right.
And get very clear on what it is right now. So that way at the end of training, we can go back and do that pie chart after you've played and investigated of, I need more high vibe people in my life, right?
So people will say, how do I attract
Yeah.
more high vibe people? Here's a really good analogy that I like to give. So let's say you're in an elevator and you push the basement and you go down into the basement. You're going to meet everybody in the basement. You push that, you get back in the elevator, you're going to push the penthouse, you're going to meet everyone in the penthouse, right? So it really starts with you. Who are you? Who are you? It's one of my favorite lines from Alice in Wonderland. Who are you, right?
Yes.
This is a question we should be asking ourselves every day. How do I want to show up in life? How do I want to show up in that line at the coffee shop or at the gas station, or walking my dog? Do I say hi to my neighbor? How do I want to show up in life? Because only you can raise your own vibration. And once you raise your vibration, you're going to attract people that are resonating on that vibration.
Absolutely.
Now, will people who are resonating at a lower vibration look at you and kind of want to latch on because they need a lift up? Yeah, that always happens. It's very depleting. You think you're doing a good deed, but it's absolutely the most draining thing. So I think the best thing is to maintain a super high vibration, protect your own energy field, connect with people that can empower you.
Make your flame higher, not douse it.
And what I'm getting from you in summary is that, like the heart of the athlete, you're not approaching this through ego. You're approaching this through determination, through knowing that you can be 1% better every day.
Yeah.
You're trying to give people tools to acquire that, and your goal seems to be that you want to give them tools to acquire that and then to share it with others.
Yes.
And that is a very unique approach, a very beautiful approach. And I think it's important to tell people how they can find you, what your website is, when your next teacher training is.
Yes.
I know you host retreats. I think they're all on a website, if I'm correct. But take a moment just to talk about that and let them know. And what we'll do is we're going to have links in the bio so that you can connect directly with Lissa and either get into a yoga teacher training, maybe even chat on the phone, find out about some of her beautiful retreats.
Yes. So like you said, one of my biggest passions in life is just to show up and to be of service and to allow anybody who has the desire to learn to give them that opportunity. And so you can find the training through the Colorado Springs School of Yoga.com. There is actually an intention setting guide that is on there right now. So you could also put in /intention and you can submit your email and you will receive an intention setting guide. Generally done at the beginning of the year, but honestly could be done. And I like to do mine quarterly, every few months, just to check in and see if I'm upholding the intention I set at the beginning of the year.
That's a really cool thing.
And you can change your mind.
Self-regulation.
And it's
That's
like,
wonderful.
okay, this didn't serve me. I'm changing my mind, and that's okay. The next training starts August 19th. It is a weekday format. It is our fall immersion format. So it starts August 19th and it ends October 3rd with Labor Day week off. And right now, early bird is still being accepted. So if that's something that you are interested in, please book a call, reach out to me, let me know that you're interested. And I'm also gonna put this out there, but if finances is the only reason that's gonna halt anybody in their desire to be on the path or on this path, then please reach out to me, because there's been times where I've worked with students with payment plans, and if it just comes down to, if you have the desire, we'll figure it out. So the book the call is on the website. You can find me there. You can also find an overview of the whole training. It breaks it down pretty much hour by hour. Frequently asked questions. Do you have to be advanced? No. Do you have to be in the yoga practice and in the yoga wellness community for X amount of years? No. Do I have to teach after? No. So reach out to me. You can find me through the website along with Lissa Lenz Yoga on Instagram. It's kind of where I post any workshops I'm hosting, continuing education programs. Nice. Along with, right now we are in October launching the Incubator. So that is ran through the Yoga Professional, and that is where yoga teachers can come and learn Business Accelerator and personal growth through a 6-month container online.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff. So you have to go to her website and see all those things. Any other events coming up that you want to mention?
Last but not least, one of my passion projects is retreats, and Mountain Bliss is hosting a retreat in Sayulita, November 7th through the 11th. We have 4 spots left. It's co-ed.
Congratulations.
And I'm so excited.
No, that is great.
Thank you.
That is excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So we are today at the Treehouse. I love this place. So you walked in, you're like, oh my gosh, Sarah, you did such a good job here. It's so inviting, isn't it?
Oh, incredible.
This is such a community place here in Colorado Springs, and I encourage you to come here. There's a room that you can rent out to host so many small events. There's a larger room for larger events. The food is great. The pastries are great. The coffee is solar roast. We locally roasted. It's fantastic. The vibe is great. Lots of cool people hanging out.
Yeah.
Healing Wheel Holistic and Retreats and Travel. That's my company. We got a whole bunch of retreats coming up. We got Mountain Mystics coming up. It's a psychic mediumship awareness retreat with Julie Speechens and Deb DeSille. We have 3 spots available. That's in Glenwood Springs. Then we have December coming up, December 13th through the 20th, Healthy Holiday at the Rio in Costa Rica. This is a Pilates, running, and surf retreat. If you can't run, don't worry, you can run in the pool. But this is really exciting to us, and we just launched that, so we have a lot of rooms. It's a grand hotel. So literally we could take 30 people. I'm really excited about it. I want a lot of people to experience this. I would want people to shop in Costa Rica. The holiday season, these people need our patronage, and it's money well spent there, you know. It's an easy flight from Denver. It's 4 hours nonstop. So all our stuff is there. We have a Hawaiian cruise coming up. We have an art retreat in Asheville, North Carolina. We host retreats. We also curate retreats for and we're a full-blown travel agency. That's at www.healingwheelholistic.com. I can't even go over all this stuff. I'll lose my breath.
I love it.
Anyway, thank you so much for being here with me today. I've got a ton more questions.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.